That's my bicycle.
Uh, that's beautiful.
Oh yeah, it's a truck. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we're talking today with Alex Lee. You are a protester who was forced to leave Hong Kong.
Oh yeah.
And you've come to the United States and you're biking from Los Angeles all the way across the country to Boston to raise awareness for the situation in Hong Kong. Tell us what was going on in Hong Kong that you felt that you had to leave or you were forced to leave? What were you doing before all this?
It's quite a long story. 2019, I was a university student. My major is sociology. And I was in Tokyo, Japan. There was a Hong Kong protest. Why did people protest? Because they wanted their freedom, democracy, and rule of law. But the Communist Party only want to give them, brainwashed education system and censorship and rule by law. So at that moment, there are 7 million population in Hong Kong. At that moment, about 3 million people went to the street to battle against the Communist Party. I think, the Communist Party promised the Hong Kong citizens to give them, 50 years to keep their own law system and their democracy and freedom. But, the Communist Party couldn't abide by their promise. This is why people, at that moment, people were so angry. And I think, it's right. It's right. When we face up to the dictators, we have to show our attitude to the dictatorship. I think, people ask me, Hong Kong protest, it was already failed. Why do you still want to do such a, long back trip for supporting Hong Kong protest? To me, I think, it's not only a lesson for the Hong Kong people, but also a lesson for local Americans. Think about it. From Hong Kong, you are gonna see, without freedom and democracy, what a country, our place looks like. That's a very precious lesson. So, yeah.
Well, you've made quite a sacrifice here. You've uprooted your life. Now, did you feel that you were forced to leave Hong Kong, or was pressure put on you, or threats made, or did you just voluntarily decide to move yourself to the United States?
Oh, it's a good question. I love my hometown, but, I went to Hong Kong to participate in Hong Kong protest. And I made speeches before rallies and assemblies. Sometimes, maybe, 200 or 300 people, sometimes, 50,000 or 100,000 people, the big rallies. So, and I also got interviews from the local newspapers and the medias. I was the first man who dared to make, speeches publicly before the rallies as a mainlander Chinese, because, I considered, I could be a symbol of new generation progressive Chinese students. So that's why I contacted the organizers and they let me make speeches for the Hong Kong people to show my opinion. I think, even though I'm from mainland China, everyone knows, the politics in mainland China is very dangerous. The Communist Party, they are gonna arrest you immediately if you dare to battle against them. So, but I think, we couldn't just keep silent. we have to show our attitude to the dictatorship. That's why I made my decision to make speeches, for, supporting the Hong Kong citizens. Finally, I couldn't come back to China because, I did quite a lot of things very publicly. If I come back to China, I'm gonna be a future prisoner. We have big data, we have artificial intelligence, we have DNA high-level techniques, so they can recognize your face immediately. So they are gonna arrest you. You're gonna be, you're gonna be a prisoner when you come back to China. So yeah.
So you decided to come to the United States and bike all the way across the United States. You're alone. I noticed you've lost a tooth. You got in an accident, right? In North Dakota. Tell us about that. You were hit by a drunk driver?
Oh yeah, you never know you are gonna meet a drunk driver in North Dakota. So you can see I lost a tooth because of the car accident. And you can see here as well. And also here. I don't have my spleen anymore. My pancreas was inflamed. My atrium, my heart was broken, and I lost a tooth as well. So my back, the car accident hurt my back as well. So I always feel like, my back is painful. And, I embarked on my trip almost July last year. When I arrived in Grand Forks, North Dakota, about September 20th, maybe 8 p.m. or 8:30 p.m. And a drunk driver hit me from behind, so I lost my mind immediately. When I woke up, I was already in Grand Forks in ICU. So I think when I woke up, maybe it was already October, so I stayed in ICU for almost maybe 2 weeks. I'm not sure. And I didn't even realize I got a car accident. When I woke up, the nurse, she told me I was hit by a drunk driver. Yeah, so I actually I don't have the memory at all. I don't have the memory. So this year, I left the hospital in Grand Forks, North Dakota, November 4th last year. And I have several friends in Salt Lake City, Utah. So I went to Salt Lake City for recovering. I stayed in Salt Lake City for 3 months. This year, February 10th, I flew to Grand Forks, North Dakota from Salt Lake City, Utah. And I passed North Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan, and here, Ohio. My destination will be Boston. So I think, maybe 2 or 3 days later, or 4 days later, I'm gonna arrive in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Then from Pittsburgh to go to Washington, D.C., then Annapolis, Maryland, then Baltimore, Philadelphia, New York, Boston. Yeah.
So thank you for checking in while you're here in the Cleveland area. What can people do here in the United States to help support both your ride as well as to register their protest or write letters or get involved in the movement to support Hong Kong? What can you suggest that people do?
Oh, it's quite funny. Honestly, local Americans, most local Americans, maybe they've been to European countries or South American countries, but a lot of, local Americans, they've never been to an Asian country. So, some people, they don't even know where's Hong Kong. Yeah. So I just, by the biking trip, by the back trip, I told them my story, what happened in Hong Kong and what is happening in Hong Kong. So it's quite funny. You know what? When I was in Hong Kong, the Communist Party told people, if you participate in Hong Kong protest, you can get money from CIA. But you know what? I stayed in Hong Kong for 3 months. I never get, 1 cent from CIA. Yeah, so I just, I tell people, how brutal Hong Kong, it is. And maybe, just, after a decade, after several years, Hong Kong will be another normal city, in China. They are going to lose all of their, freedom and democracy. And I think, nowadays, Communist Party and the local government, try to give the children brainwashed education system. So I think, if you want to change the society, first of all, you have to change the children, because the children, they are the future of the society. So now, they are trying to give the children brainwashed education system. I think, it's so bad to me. And also in Hong Kong, they are trying to give the Hong Kong people more censorship. Oh, it's just, it's kind of the same method, yeah, same way in China. It's kind of, like, 1984 by George Orwell. The big brother is always watching you.
Well, good luck on the rest of your trip. I wish you safety, and thank you so much for all the hard work you do along the way. You've gotten a lot of attention for this ride. We'll link to some of that coverage. Thank you for raising awareness, for putting your life on hold to speak out and to raise awareness here. Alex, I don't know what to say as a fellow biker, as someone who understands, your position and obviously supports democracy. Thank you for putting yourself out there. I'm so sorry that you've been injured. I know you spent 4 months recuperating and you still have pain, and you're going to live with that probably the rest of your life. But we do so much thank you for what you're going through here, and we'll continue to support you in any way that we can.
Oh yeah, thank you, Tom. And finally, I would like to, to say thank you very much to all the local Americans. I got quite a lot of, very generous help from the local Americans. People, they like freedom, they like, democracy. They would like to help the Hong Kong citizens. So when I told them the story in Hong Kong, they were touched. They wanted to do something for the Hong Kong people. I think, that's why, the United States is a great country, because, people are generous. People would like to help the other people who are in need, who are, under suffering, the suffering of the dictatorship. So I think, to me, it's quite a long trip. That's my first time to do such a long back trip. I think, no matter how tough the reality is, I never complain anything else. I never blame anyone else. I just, I try my best to find a way to deal with all the problems. I think, maybe, someday the Communist Party will like the other, maybe, Soviet will be collapsed. I'm waiting for that.
Thank you so much for your example, to not complain, to not blame other people, to just do what you can do. If everyone would just do that, we would move forward. We'd have a better world. Alex, thank you so much for taking a few moments here. Best of luck on your trip, and continue to stay in touch.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. Thank you very much. Have a good
Thank
day.
you. You too. It's
Yeah.
Thomas Moretti from Cool Cleveland. Have a great week in Cool Cleveland.